Bye! My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome back to another episode of Duck Dogs, everyone. I'm your host, Josh Miller. And before we get going here with the episode, let's make sure that we thank the sponsors that make the episode even possible. So thank you to DUK. DUK Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend of food that I feed my dogs. It's what got them through the season in the shape that they're currently in, which they look absolutely fantastic, especially after going through the grueling season that they just went through. So www.DUK Premium Performance Sport 3020. Go check it out. Also, thank you to Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck is your 5-star crash test rated kennel, both in the intermediate and the large sizes. So no matter what size your 4-legged hunting partner is, you will be sure that you are traveling as safe as you possibly can. So go check out www.luckyduck.com. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs. They are just fantastic people, fantastic products, and they have great customer service, just great people. www.gundogsupply.com, your one-stop shop for all of your dog training and hunting needs. Thank you to Kent Cartridge. Kent is the brand of shotgun shell that we shot all season long. Loved every bit of it, especially the Kent Bismuth. I would highly suggest going and checking it out. We made believers out of many, many people that we passed a few shells down to them for them to shoot. It's a big difference shooting that bismuth. So go check out Kent Cartridge. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka Gear is your premium option for your outdoor clothing, whether it is going outside to train or grueling those Arctic temperatures that I'm currently dealing with here up in Wisconsin. It will keep you outside and comfortable for longer. www.sitkagear.com. And last but not least, thank you to Retriever Roadmap. Retriever Roadmap is your premium online option for training your own dog at home. Go at your pace, step-by-step video libraries to walk you through getting your dog to the goal that you dream of. www.retrieverroadmap.com. Well, this is a milestone episode here today, as this is episode 100. And so I have some kind of fun stuff here today to kind of share with you guys through that. So first off, just let me reflect 1 second on 100 episodes. So when I first started this podcast, I've talked about it a few times as we've gone along this journey, but it really was because COVID took away one of the things that I really, truly enjoy, which is speaking to people, sharing my experiences, sharing my knowledge, and helping people have a better relationship, with their dog. And I usually had done that through seminars. I'd go to these shows, I would travel, I'd speak, I would see the faces, I would have, those aha moments, and it just was very rewarding for me. It was one of my favorite things that I did. And when COVID took that away, this was an opportunity to still speak to an audience and hopefully achieve those same goals. Now, it's a little different because I can't see your faces. I can't see, am I making an impact or am I not? But I'll tell you, so many of you guys reach out to me, social media messages, emails, phone calls, that I really do feel like this has so much of a reward, and I can reach so many more people and then do it on a regular basis. So thank you guys so much for over the years all the feedback and all the encouragement and the notes of thanks, and it really does warm my heart, and it makes me feel so much more enthusiastic about making the time to sit down and do this, because as I've mentioned, that it is difficult at times to find that, but it is those messages that make me so happy to find that time. And so thank you guys for making episode 100 possible. So a couple things for episode 100. I have a couple new things for you guys. So Mountain Ops. I'm currently drinking Mountain Ops Magnum Protein. Now that I'm back at home, I can really get back into my routine, my workout routine, my nutrition routine. And Mountain Ops is partnering, not specifically with this podcast, but with everything that we're doing. They wanted to partner with Retriever Roadmap. And as you guys know, if you're Retriever Roadmap members, how many great companies offer discounts to that group? Well, Mountain Ops said that they want to give to all of our platforms. So if you are a Mountain Ops member, Mountain Ops has great supplements, meal replacements, nutrition of all sorts of kinds, and then just that physical side of if you're looking for bands, if you're looking for workout programs, things like that. So go to www.mountainops.com. Use the code Riverstone, all one word. Riverstone is in Riverstone Kennels. Use Riverstone, and you will get, I believe it's free shipping, and I don't know if or what is on top of that. But if you're ordering from Mountain Ops, or if this is something that interests you, new year, do more for you, use that code and make sure that you get your discount. So that's number one. Number two is I wanted to give back the best that I could. And so through Retriever Roadmap, I'm going to give a discount for all of you guys, which is if you use the code DD as in duck dog, so the letter D, 100, capital D, capital E, 100, for the 100th episode, you will get $100 off of your membership when you start. So go check that out too. I think that's a great compliment to everything. Again, I want to give back to you guys and what you guys you have done making this podcast possible. So that's something that I'm able to offer. So go check that out. And we have some super, super cool things going on in the Retriever Roadmap community here in the coming months. So be sure to jump on that while you can. Gosh, I could go on and on about 100 episodes. That just is mind-boggling to me. When I started this, I thought it was like my mom and maybe like one other person would listen to this thing, and it certainly hasn't been that. The tens of thousands of downloads each month actually is pretty incredible. The numbers that number of you guys are listening to this, so thank you guys for that. But I want to get into kind of the meat and potatoes of today, and I kind of find we're in an interesting transition here between hunting season and training season. So like if you're in the north where I'm at in Wisconsin, I'm not joking when I say it is negative 20 degrees out right now. It's negative 20. That's not wind chill. The last wind chill I looked at was negative 38. How is that even possible? Negative 38. So if you're in the north, you might be sitting here going, all right, well, our season ended months ago. We obviously can't get out and train in this, right? So poor us. Well, you're not going to be saying that in July when it's gorgeous here and my buddies down south are cooking by 6 a.m, right? So there's a give and take there. Down south, you guys are probably in the situation where, hey, season just ended. But you have the availability to jump right into training season, which is super advantageous, especially knowing that you are going to get in that super hot time, of the year here in just a few months. It's kind of crazy. It'll be right around the corner. And so I'm going to tell you guys a story. I'm going to tell you guys a story that one of our listeners named Scott reached out to me and said, hey, I listened to this podcast. I think you'd really like it. It was a great episode, but they told a story in this podcast that hit me. And I want to share with you guys first what the story was and then why it hit me so much. And a lot of things went through my head with it, okay? So the story goes that there were two young fish swimming in the ocean. And on this morning, as they're swimming, an older fish going the other way passes them, looks over to the younger fish and nods, and he goes, "How's the water, boys?" And keeps swimming. A couple of minutes later, the one young fish looks over to the other young fish and goes, "What the hell is water?" And first off, I want to pause, take a second, and see how that story hits you and why. Because this hit me from a couple different angles. I think this is one of those stories that's like, whatever moment you're in, you probably feel it that way. Okay? I'm going to tell you how I felt it. There were two things that really hit me right away. The first one was appreciation. Okay, so obviously in the story, the two young fish didn't even appreciate enough to know what it is, that this is what is keeping them alive. Like this is what they're in. And sometimes I feel like we can all get that way, right? We can kind of get lost in that. So appreciation for your environment, your family, the roof over your head. Sometimes that appreciation, sometimes you need to step back and really, look at it. But then that's the other side of it to me is taking a step back and evaluating your situation, understanding the water that you are currently in. I feel like so many of us get lost in it. We're all of a sudden we look up one day and like, gosh, like where did the last 10 years go? Sometimes you don't even realize, that situation that you're in every day. So I don't know why that story hit me. I really felt it. I want to share it with you guys. I think it's kind of a neat way, to start this. But as I heard that story, and I start listening to, all these things kind of start hitting me like bum 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 bum. One thing really hit me, which was a saying that I hadn't thought about for a very, very, very long time. But just as those fish had the aha moment, or maybe they didn't, you assume that they probably did, a short while after that. But there's a saying that I never understood personally until I had kids. But I was told this a long time ago. And what I was told was that, I'm going to say every person, okay, but it was every man. Every person has two lives. And the second one starts when they realize that they only have one. And I feel like I have a number of people in my life right now that this time of year just has this like blah moment about it. Blah, because season just got over. Blah, because you're off the, hey, new year, new me, right? Like you're off that high right now, right? Especially if you're in the north, you're looking at all the snow, you're looking at negative degrees, you're looking at like, what is there to get excited about? And then you start realizing, this time that you're letting go by not being present in the moment and appreciating every day. Find something that excites you. Find something that, gets you up, gets you out the door, makes you the best version of you every day. It's not easy. For some of us, it's going to be our dogs, and we can dive into that. Let's look at this from a dog perspective. When you go to the appreciation side of things, when I talked about that fish story, and something that hit me was the appreciation of the moment that you're in. Okay. Sometimes I feel like we can it's easy to not appreciate the dog that we have. It's easy to look at other people and go, gosh, I wish I had that dog. I wish my dog would look like that. I wish my dog would be like that. I wish he'd have that motor. I wish he'd have that. Well, he or she is who she or he is. And you could, if you step back, you can appreciate the things that maybe those other dogs don't have. Okay? Gosh, I wish my dog had that big of a motor. But what you don't see is that dog can't live in the house because that dog won't ever calm down. Meanwhile, your dog is cuddling on the floor, playing with your kids. Appreciate it. Right? They only get one life. One thing, Whitney and I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but Whitney and I recently had to put down one of our dogs. And not one of our boys, it was one of our girls. Way, way, way too young. Just had a freak thing that came on inside of her body that unfortunately she wasn't able, to fight. And I can tell you, it doesn't get any tougher. Or I'm sorry, it doesn't get any easier. It's always going to be tough, that moment. But, when I look back on all the mistakes that I've made with all of my dogs, it seems to all accumulate at that moment, right? Like afterwards, and it's hard not to, regret certain things or certain scoldings or certain, training environments maybe you wish you would have handled differently, or you wish you would have got them into more hunts, you wish you would have done all these things, right? But again, when we realize that we only have one life, all of a sudden it's a little easier to take that extra hunting trip or get them out that one more time for the season. Something to think about. All right. That got a little somber quickly, didn't it? Here's what I want to do. I want to go over a season recap, let you guys kind of know how I end the season. I'm actually doing that right now. I'm going to kind of bring you in with me as I go through this. There's some really interesting notes that I'm taking from the season that I will be applying into my training season. But also this stood out at me, and the only way that this stood out at me, or could have stood out to me, is because I'm as detailed as I am with my in-season note-taking, if you will. So I want to go over the dogs, okay? So one of the things that I do with every one of my dogs is I keep track of the number of retrieves that they make. Okay. And I do this because I think it's really interesting to look back at the end of season and see who did what. And then there's usually a why behind it. Like last year was a very down year for us because of how poor of a hunting season we had in Arkansas. It was extremely tough. It was very, very poor. And the dogs, as a result, didn't get the number of retrieves that they could have had. Now, for me this year, I made a hard pivot, made another investment, got me in a better situation, and the numbers are going to show. And so I'll kind of go over that with you guys. But as I look through my notebook here in this season, there's a few things that really stand out to me. One was Clyde, specifically Clyde and Bud. I'm going to say these two on the lesser end of the spectrum, okay? So these two had much fewer retrieves than what I was hoping that they would. Now, it's because Clyde and Bud, for the most part, missed the majority of January. Okay, so if you've paid attention, if you follow along, you know that Clyde ended up in the emergency vet down in Memphis with pneumonia. Again, very strange. He never showed a single sign until all of a sudden you could tell he was very sick and very uncomfortable. It's like, in the morning he was fine, in the afternoon he's not. It was that quick. And so through his recovery, he didn't get to hunt the entire month. Now, Bud, he did show signs of coughing and hacking. And, so I was treating him for that, but I was super cautious with him, not putting him into, the extreme cold, getting wet, sitting outside in fear of whatever he had, whether it was kennel cough or, what have you. I didn't want that to turn into pneumonia and have the same situation that we had before. That was a scary situation. So I held both of them back. And so, Clyde ended up with 133 retrieves for the year. And Bud ended up with 114. Now, they were probably pretty dang even. Actually, Bud had a bigger, duck and goose, year, except Clyde got that early season dove down in Kansas where Bud didn't. Again, this is just some dogs get to go on some trips and some dogs don't. And then the reality of not every hunt is going to be a great hunt. So as I look at this, so I had 87 days in the field this year, 87. And so I'm looking at Brock, Clyde, Solo, Bud, Strike, Tucker. Okay, Tucker was pretty minimal, but he was in there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so without doing math, or without quickly doing math, I want to say that's like roughly 14-ish. Oh, gosh, I better pull out the calculator because otherwise someone's going to call me out on it. Okay, so I have 87 days, 6 dogs, 14 and a half. That was pretty dang close. So 14. So you look at 87 days and you go, gosh, like 87 days, that's a lot of days of hunting. But when you have 6 dogs you're trying to rotate through, and you start looking at that and go, that means each one of them only gets 14 times that they get to hunt. Yeah, that's not many for a season. So that's why it's so important for me to try to get them in these really good hunts. That's why I take the time scouting like I do in the Dakotas, scouting like I do in Missouri, scouting like I do, not as much in Arkansas because we've talked about that, but making the maneuvers and the moves and the connections that I have to make in Arkansas to get in these better setups and better situations. Very, very important, okay? So I'm going to tell you I've added all the retrieves up, okay? Last year we had 555 retrieves total. Really poor year. This year was 916, so almost doubled what we did last year. 916 retrieves. Now, did that mean we killed 916 birds? Absolutely not, because the majority of the time, whether it is in North Dakota with Knox, whether it is in Arkansas with Millie, whether it is in Arkansas with the people that we invite down, like Eric, Eric, the Retriever Roadmap winner that brought his dog down. Most of the time we're hunting with another dog. So I'm not saying that we shot 1,800 birds, but might have been close to it. And of course, that's not just me shooting, that's the group, right? So there's a lot there, a lot that goes into that number. Now, 916, that's a big number, for me, especially all things considered, right? You think about it. So let's just say that was, 1,800. Think about 1,800 birds in a year. That's a lot of birds in a year. Now, I'm sure somebody knows an outfitter buddy that probably does more than that. That's great. But for me, that I'm traveling, that I'm spending this time, especially in the Dakotas, it's a lot of scouting, it's a lot of drive time, a lot of windshield time. I'm very proud of that. That's really, and why I'm proud of it is not because I'm glad I killed that many birds. I'm proud of it because I got my dogs into nearly double the amount of retrieves that I did last year. I think that was great. Brock was the most retrieves this year at 253, with his longest blind being 550. Pretty freaking awesome. His blinds that stood out to me were 400, 420, and 550, and these are all marked via Onyx. I mark where we are or where we're set up. I go out to where that bird's picked up and use the line distance indicator, and I can know exactly how far each blind is, which is a really cool feature of that Onyx app. Solo was a big storyline, for me. So first off, he had his first blind retrieve, which was 130 yards. Nothing crazy, but when it's your first one, what I was so impressed with him on that was that he wanted, like, you watched him take the line, and as soon as he was getting out of that spread, he wanted to break down. I read his body language was starting to break down. And the reason he was breaking down is because he had picked up so many marks in the decoys that in his head, that bird has to be in the decoys, stop right away. gave him a back cast, and he pushed through it really, really well. He didn't fight me, didn't challenge me, didn't try to suck in. I was very, very proud of that. So he did very well there. So 132 retrieves for Solo in was really his first season. So you go back to last year. Last year he had 22. So 22 to 132. Now, if you recall last year, Solo was in his red shirt year. And the only reason that he hunted is because we found ourselves in Montana, those super, super cold temperatures, and I could not hunt. I just had him and Brock, and he was planned to just sit there and watch, and I didn't feel safe, and so I rotated each one back to the truck after each volley to keep them warm. So 22 retrieves last year to 132. He dove hunted, he duck hunted, he picked up geese, he picked up Canadas, he picked up speckled bellies, he picked up snow geese. I'm very, very proud of him. He showed me everything that I wanted to see this season. He was completely composed. He never broke, never made a peep. He actually is very statue-like when he's sitting and scanning. And watching him, he scans the skies nonstop. He gets the game. I do believe a lot of this came from how often he sat in that field or sat beside me in the blind during his redshirt season. He was able to just soak it in. You don't have to be on your toenails. You don't have to be a rubber band waiting to snap. Just chill out. Enjoy this. Take it in and watch it. And then he blew up into a monster this year. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. 132 was a huge, huge jump for him. But the big standout this year for me is Strike. Strike is, if you meet him, if you happen to be going out to Great American, he will be with me out there. Potentially bring him to Pheasant Fest. I'm not quite sure yet. Haven't made up my mind there yet. But I have made up my mind that he's going out with me to the Great American Outdoor Show. He is a dog. When you see him, he is so calm and so chill that you're like, does he have it? Does he have that oomph? Does he have that? Well, if you follow along on Riverstone at all, you know he does. I mean, the dude, when it's time to go, it is time to go, and he's got a motor. Brock had 253. He had 251. Major blinds that I have noted: 385, 480, 422, and his longest to date at 575. The dude's special. He continues to impress me. And again, if you guys have not listened to this Strike story, go, I think it is like episode 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, way at the beginning of this, and you will see why I'm so proud of this dog. If you recall that story, I had after all of that happened, why would I ever think that he would ever turn into anything? Why would I ever think he would be more than just hopefully a pet, hopefully a dog that I could take on a walk and not have him worry about just completely bailing on me, run off? After all that happened, how could I trust him? And here he is running a 575-yard blind. One moment that we had here recently on a hunt in Arkansas. So we found ourselves in a very less than ideal situation. Ducks were tough. They were stale. We got invited to go on a snow/speckled belly hunt. Big feed. One of my buddies found it. That's great. Let's go. So we load up. We get there. And once we get there, we learn two things. We learn one thing upon arrival. That one thing that we learn is there are two other dogs. So we have 3 dogs. Okay. Less than ideal, right? And one of the people running a dog, I don't know, and my buddy doesn't know, which generally speaking doesn't really bode well for us, right? Like when you really think about now I was going to these with the optimism of, I hope this is fantastic. I hope these dogs are really well behaved, under control, all get along. We have a big time, awesome time, fun time. Great. but it's rarely the case. And this gentleman, he was a super, super, super nice guy. One of the first things he did is he's talking up his dog. Well, he's got 3 master passes, and we train with so and so. I didn't know the person. He's gonna be a stud dog for this, and we've already had 2 litters out of him. Blah blah blah. Okay, great. But what I've learned, and you guys have heard me say this, the number one rule that you should have is do not talk your dog up before a hunt to someone that doesn't know the dog. It's a surefire way for things to go wrong. But anyways, we get out there, and again, I preach this: keep your dogs under control. There's no reason for your dogs to be running around in the decoys as you're setting up. There's no reason for them to be out of control. My dogs stay in the truck, in the kennel, until we're all set up and I can have my undivided attention on them. So we set up. One of the dogs is running all over the place, and all of a sudden I kind of hear some yelling going on. I look over, and the 2 dogs are kind of like in each other's face and everything. I'm like, what? Are we going to have 2 aggressive dogs? Like, what the heck's going on? Well, as it turns out, the female of the 2 is in heat. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I mean, this is like one gut punch after another. Like, at this point, I'm like, I don't even want to bring him out of the truck. This is not going to go well, right? But the other side of it's pulling at me going, we have been on a dry spell. We've gone on like a 6 to 7 day stretch where it's been really tough to get birds, really tough to get retrieves, and I've got a dog in strike having a breakout season. Gosh, I knew that this situation was probably going to offer some opportunities at some long blinds. And so I'm like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Ask the guys, where are you guys going to put your dogs? Okay, each one of them wanted an end, of course. Okay, so I'm in the middle. So we have 2 Lucky Duck 2x4 blinds pushed together. I was going to keep Strike right in the middle and just poke his head out of the gap that I would make in between the 2 blinds in the middle. Now, normally I would tell you not to do this, but Strike is so incredibly under control that I don't have to worry about the knocking over guns and causing a very dangerous situation. Dogs running around the blind is a major, major pet peeve of mine. But with him, I knew I probably didn't have to worry about that. He was going to be right at my side. I was going to be able to watch the whole thing. But I went into this going, that first volley, I was like, Strike, you're not moving. I'm not sending you. Because I need to figure out what is all going to go on here. Are these dogs going to be steady? Are they going to honor each other? How is this female in heat going to operate? Right? So, working birds, first birds, do it. On the shots, both dogs in the end take off. Okay, so now I know we have 2 breaking dogs. So I'm looking at Strike going, well, you're probably not going to get to go much today, right? Because I do not want one of my dogs out there with a dog that is in heat and have an accident happen. So you're probably going to hold back, dude. You're probably going to watch a lot of this, and you're probably just going to go pick up the long blinds, which I'm totally fine with, right? Well, as would have it, what would happen is they would break. They usually pick up a bird. They'd come back. They'd get scolded for breaking, and then they'd be like, Josh, why don't you send your dog? Okay, cool. Now, I appreciate and respect those guys for understanding what went wrong and then controlling it, not giving those dogs another reward, right? But then it gave me the peace of mind of he's not going to be out there with her to where something's going to happen, so he got to pick up a few. My proud moment of the day was we had sailed a spec, not crazy far, but pretty far. And it kind of landed, and I was able to get a great mark on it. There were 2 like wet spots in the field. It was right in between the 2, like a beautiful mark, very identifiable for me. But we had birds working again, and so my buddy Nick's like, hey, you got a mark on that? I'm like, yep. He's like, we'll get it later. Perfect. So we continued to do our thing, and there was another snow that had sailed in this fall. He worked this group, didn't want to finish. We're like, all right, let's pick those birds up. And so the guy with the chocolate's like, hey, like I want to run my dog on the blind on the snow. Okay. Well, I mean, you should be able to see the snow. I mean, he's like, I don't know, 200 yards away in a mud field, sticks out like a sore thumb, right? But what ended up happening, again, super nice guy, but I'm just going to tell you guys, there's a reason I'm telling you this story. I'm certainly not trying to rag on him. Like I said, he was a super, super nice guy. But sends the dog's all over the place, okay? And he's literally walking out to the bird and just going, back, back, back. And the dog's like 10 yards in front of him and look at him, kind of spin a little bit, look at him, spin again a little bit, look. And he had to almost get within probably 40 yards of this bird before he saw it and he ran out to go get it. So I'm standing there with Strike watching this whole thing. And the reason I'm not sending Strike at the same time, because one of my friends like, you can send him, because basically if you're looking at a clock and the blind is facing noon, the snow was probably at like 1 o'clock, and the spec that Strike and I were gonna go run on the blind was probably more like 10:30, 11 o'clock. So they wouldn't have interfered with each other. But he's blowing that whistle, tweet back, tweet back, tweet back. And I don't want Strike out there hearing a whistle, spin around thinking what the heck's going on, right? So I'm going to allow this situation to calm down before I send him. So he finally picks that bird up. He's walking back. I line Strike up. Get him lined up. Back. Takes off. I give him one whistle. Give him an angle back cast. Kind of put him back on line. And then he actually saw, I don't know what it was, to be honest with you. It was a clump of something. And he thought it was right. So he kind of like put his ears down and like beeline to it, but it was off to the right. So I stopped him again, gave him an angle back cast left, all the way to it. Boom, picked it up. It was like 310. When we were walking out, it was a little arrogant probably, but as we were walking out, my buddy's like, you got this? And I looked at him, I was like, dude, give me a hard one. Like I was very, very confident that we were going to pick this up. So he's on the way back, and the guy that had the other chocolates walking back, he's like, you run field trials, don't you? And I was like, not anymore. I used to, not anymore. He's like, oh, he's like, that was way impressive, dude. Really impressive. I'm like, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. But here's why I tell you that story. Okay. This is why I have this like internal conundrum with the titles. Okay. So there's a dog that has, I think he said 3 master passes. He will get his other passes, and that will be a master hunter. Sure didn't look like it. Right? Meanwhile, Strike just crushed this thing. Now, if they line up and they both have the same title, on paper, they're both the same dog. And you would have sat in that blind and been like, there's no freaking way those dogs are on the same level. And in these hunting environments, you just get these dogs that they're going to show you some true colors, okay? I was just messaging with one of my buddies last night that he hunt tests really heavy. And, he's like, man, like, I'm so excited to get back to chasing ribbons, chasing titles, all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, great. He's asking how his season went. He doesn't hunt. He has his dogs, he campaigns and he titles, but he doesn't hunt. And that's what I'm telling him. I'm like, man, like, you got to get your dogs out in some of these situations. Like, they will show you who they are. And it will throw curveballs at you, and it will challenge you as a handler. It will challenge them as a dog. It will challenge your control. It will challenge all this stuff. Now, again, I think titles are very, very important. I think they're very valuable. There's a reason that we spend, when I say we, me, I spend time campaigning my dogs over the summer because I feel like it is important to prove what it is I'm saying at a measurable standard. I totally get it. But I also don't understand not hunting a dog that you're playing the game with. Because at the end of the day, isn't that why we're doing this? So I was really proud of him in that moment. Those are just the times in the season that it stands out. That cast with Solo, to be quite honest with you, that cast with Solo was like, that's it. He's got it. just those moments you work for and you work all summer long and you know he can do it. But will you, in the moment that you think you know best, in the moment that your mind is telling you one thing, are you going to stop and be a team player? Are you going to let your training take over? Really interesting stuff. So I was very, very proud of him, in that. So, when I look at this season, I really think that Strike is my standout. He's the one that impressed me over and over and over again. He's the one that had the big leap year. Again, just retrieve-wise. Now, some of this is luck, being fortunate to be on these hunts, but 120, Strike was 120. Strike was 120, and his longest blind was 410 last year. This year, he's 251, and his longest blind was 575. Now, Brock is still big dog, as he was. Oh, this was last. So last year he had one. So I have 610 in here. What was he this year? 550. 550 is his long. I feel like he had one longer than that. I don't know if I missed one. I'll have to go back and I'll have to look at it. I feel like he had one longer than that, but I can't think of it. Anyway, he still had the most retrieves, but these are a lot of times just luck of the draw. Who got on the banger? Who got on the hunt that just wasn't as productive? Now, the last thing I do want to talk about is Tucker, because Tucker's a dog that I'm still trying to figure out, is he making the team? Is he one of the dogs that stays on? From a breeding standpoint, he doesn't do me a ton of good from that because he is out of Brock's sister. But I'm just absolutely in love with this dog, and I love that it is like training Brock all over again. I feel like I'm able to apply the mistakes that I made and not make them with him. I think he's going to be that much, I don't know if better is a strong word, because, it's just hard to get better than Brock, to be quite frank. But I feel like there's a lot of things here that are aligning for me. Now, when I say that 33, why did he only have 33 retrieves? Because I was treating this as a red shirt-ish season. You got to show me you're not going to be overly anxious. You got to show me you're not going to break. You got to show me you can handle things. Like, he had a blind, his first blind, 110. Wasn't anything crazy, but he handled it very, very well. He's letting his training take over. He's a very nice dog, but that's why he didn't get a ton of retrieves. Now, perhaps if he goes through the summer, I'm like, yeah, dude, like, you're on the team, you're going with us, you're on the road. Maybe he has a solo type year. I think Solo went from 33, I think, to, or maybe, so he has 132, and let me go back here in my notes. 22 to 132. Big jump, right? Big jump. And I would say probably the biggest reasons that Solo maybe didn't get those bigger numbers is because he happened to be on some very poor hunts. He hunted a lot in that stretch. So anyway, there's a lot that goes into this. I'm going to dig into this. Now, where am I going to go from here with my evaluations? I'm going to go, and from this, I'm going to start reflecting right now, because it's fresh in my mind, and I'm going to start making game plans for each and every dog as we head into training season. What was everybody really strong on ending of the season? That's what I'm going to lean on. What was every dog weak on or started to challenge me on? Those are the things I'm going to nip in the bud right away. Everyone's going to have a different plan. How do I round everybody out so that middle of the summer-ish or middle of the spring, start of the summer, when we're starting to hunt test, starting to travel, starting to compete, how is everyone firing on all cylinders then? And then for me, I have to make another tweak. How do I retain that going forward? I'm going to leave you guys with a thought, and there's a reason that I want to give you this thought, okay? So inevitably, this time of year, I get a lot of questions, frantic messages, people that are nervous, people that are concerned with screwing up. Okay, so let me tell you some examples that I've just had recently. One individual, hey, I just picked up a puppy. This is my first dog. I'm so nervous to even start the process because I'm afraid to screw it up. Okay, that's one. Second one, hunting season didn't go as well as I wanted it to, and now I'm nervous that I've screwed this dog up and that I won't be able to achieve the goals that I set out for. Another one. Okay. This one. Getting into training season down here, I assume in the south somewhere, but I'm nervous on what step to start with and how fast or slow I should be going. I really don't want to screw this up. Everybody's afraid to screw it up, okay? So here's what I'm going to tell you. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about failing forward. It's something I just recently talked with the Retriever Roadmap community about. Again, you guys got to go check out Retriever Roadmap. It is such a great community, such a great program. But I told that whole group, I told them very similar things to this, but I said fail forward. So what does failing forward mean? Failing forward means taking a failure, taking a screw up, as these people are calling it, and learn from it. Understand why it went wrong, and then apply that lesson going forward. Fail forward. If you're going to fail, fall forward in the failure so that you're still making progress. Don't back up. Don't throw your hands up. Don't walk away. Fail forward. Continue to progress. If you talk to about any entrepreneur, myself included, that has had any level of success, I promise you they will have just as many, if not more, failure stories to share with you. I'm that same way. You have to fail. Failing is what gives you the lessons. Failing is what gives you the teachings. Failure is what gives you the knowledge to go be successful. How do you get good at hitting a baseball? You figure out how to not hit a baseball. Nobody likes striking out. You figure out how to make it work. I'm going to say the best way to do this is to be intentful with your training. Okay, so just like I'm doing here, I'm breaking down the season, I'm making a game plan. Now, those priorities and that game plan can change at any moment, but I'm going to be intentful on, okay, so with Solo, coming off his first big season, this is what I want to focus on. This is what I want to go for, right? That way, if something goes wrong, I know what I was striving for. I know what I was doing and why I was doing it. It went wrong. Okay, maybe that wasn't the right approach here. Let me try this way. This is where it went wrong. Let me just take the half step back, apply what I learned, figure out the right path, go forward. I'm still going to achieve the mission. That's what I'm going to challenge you guys to do here. My challenge for the week is fail forward, whether it is in your dogs, whether it is in your career, whether it is in your life. Fail forward. You are going to fail. Embrace it. Enjoy it. But fail forward. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes. And a special thank you to DUK, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.